Hi, this is me Shiraz, and in today's lecture we are basically going to talk about the chemical bonding. So first of all, before talking about the chemical bonding, we have to define that what is a bond. As far as the concept of bond is concerned, a bond is a force that holds two atoms together. So basically, bond is a force that is holding two atoms together to form a compound. Just like we can take the example of the H2 molecule. So if we have an H2 molecule, so in the molecule of H2, there are two atoms of the hydrogen that are attached with each other. And there is a line that is shown in between these two hydrogen atoms. So this is the line which is showing a bond, because whenever the two hydrogen atoms are to be bonded to each other, or you can say that are to be connected to each other to make a molecule, so there must be a force that exists between the two bonds to make the two bonds, or you can say to make the two atoms attached with each other. And hydrogen can be taken as the simplest molecule in the chemistry. Next, we are going to talk about the types of the chemical bonding. So next is basically the types. In the context of chemistry, basically there are two types of the bonds. The one is called as the covalent bond. So one type of the bonding is the covalent. And the other type of the chemical bonding is basically called as the ionic bonding. So basically, both of these bondings are aimed at connecting the atoms. But the difference between these two types is that there is the different concept that is lying behind the two types of the bondings. So if we talk about the chemical bonding, so in the context of chemical bonding, we say that a chemical bond is formed by the sharing of the electrons. So it can be said that it's formed by the sharing of electrons, because you know that in the context of chemistry we always talk about the electrons. So we think that almost 99% of the chemistry is basically concerned with the distribution and sharing and transfer of the electrons. So the bond that is formed by the sharing of electrons is considered to be a chemical bond. Just like I have given you the example of the H2 molecule, so we can say that in the H2 molecule there is two electrons are present between the two hydrogen atoms, just like we can show the electrons with the help of a dot and cross structure. So this dot and cross structure is showing that a hydrogen molecule is having two electrons between the two atoms, and basically these are shared by each of the atoms. So we can say that one of the electron that is represented by the dot is basically that of the one hydrogen atom, and the other electron represented by the cross is related to the other one hydrogen. So we can say that this type of a bond is the covalent bond. Yes, basically in the molecule of the hydrogen, the bond between the two hydrogen atoms is the covalent bond. Then we can talk about the other type of the bonding that I have mentioned as the ionic bonding. So if we talk about the ionic bonding, so here we suppose that a bond is basically formed by transfer of electrons. So we say that whenever an atom transfers electrons to the other atom, so in that case a bond is found between the two atoms. And in the case of the ionic bonding, we can take the example of the sodium chloride. That's also called as the table salt, and this is one of the best example of the ionic compound. In this NaCl compound, we know that there is a positive charge on the sodium and the negative charge on the chlorine. And why these charges are present on the sodium and chlorine? So we can say that in making the sodium chloride, basically sodium has donated one electron. So we can say that this sodium has given one electron to the chlorine. And because of the donation, or you can say the transfer of electron from the sodium to the chlorine, the sodium has got positive charge, because we know that after the transfer of one electron, the sodium has got more positive charges as compared to the negative charges. And if we talk about the chlorine, it is having the negative charge. So why it's having the negative charge? Because whenever the chlorine has got an electron from the sodium, the number of negative ions, you can say the number of negative charges in the chlorine has become greater than that of the positive. So that's why the chlorine has got the negative charge. So we can say that whenever we are talking about the ionic bonding, there is always the presence of the positive and negative charges. A positive ion can be called as the cation, and the negative ion is basically called as the anion. So this was all about the concept of the chemical bonding. If you people have any question related to this one concept, so you can ask your queries to me. And if you don't have any queries, so hope so we can end our session. Bye bye.